All right, guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the Breaking Muscle podcast. Today, I am joined by Robert Linkul. Robert, thank you for joining us on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Robert, you're an expert in training the older athlete. Like, that's your niche. You're the go-to guy in that regard. We're all getting to get older. It's inevitable. But we with our listeners, we'll have many coaches who work with older individuals. So obviously, improving the service they provide to their clients. Some of the listeners may well already be themselves in that category and improving their training. But for anyone who's interested in longevity and both the quality and the duration of their life, this will be, I think, invaluable. So we'll explore all different avenues and get as much as we can crammed into the hour.
Sounds good.
But first of all, I imagine most guys getting into strength and conditioning or personal training don't think, I want to train older athletes. So how did you find yourself transitioning to this and making this your niche?
Yeah, not exactly the sexiest thing, coming out of college, like, hip replacements and arthritis. No, it came about because of my personal experiences. By age 36, I had 13 surgeries, including lung cancer and thyroid cancer, carcinoid tumors that had been removed, non-smoker, 3 hip replacements, 4 arthroscopies in my hips, so 7 total surgeries on my hips, a low back surgery for a discectomy of ruptured and herniated discs, 3 surgeries on my wrist, and a hernia repair. So
wow.
On paper, the reason I tell you all that, this is an Alan Cosgrove line, I don't tell it to you to impress you, but to impress upon you, like the experience that I had on paper is kind of a 70-year-old or 75-year-old, typical medical chart that you would see. And through all those experiences, I journaled about it. I put on YouTube, and I blogged, and I put on Facebook. And my clientele, I kind of had in the very beginning a mixed variety of clients between 20 and 50. And slowly, through sharing those experiences, started working with almost all of their parents or grandparents. And the majority of my business kept merging that way. But I was going to school to be a strength coach. That was my, I'm going to work in a university. I'm going to work with high-level athletes. And the more athletes I started to work with at young ages, I wasn't very good at developing them. But working with all these older folks that had injuries that still wanted to be athletically minded or compete in rec swimming or senior track field, all this, we had great success because I knew the limitations. I knew the injuries and how I was able to rehab myself. So I have an obsessive, compulsive mind of, I don't know about hip replacements. I got to learn about this because I'm going to go through it. Or a client that, I haven't trained anybody with BRCA2 mutation and surgery that we're going to have to go through. I need to learn about this. And so I've collected a lot from those experiences, had many, many clients trust me to, help them get through their limitations and get back to being either what they were or better. And the more I shared about it, the more business came my way. So it was a very nice, a kind of a blessing in disguise going through these. I wouldn't change any of it for the world because I value all those experiences and that knowledge. And I get the chance to teach other trainers, other coaches, and plus my clients. So it's a win-win all the way around.
Mm-hmm. This is, I think you mentioned Alan Cosgrove. I think this is a vague version of one of his quotes that I remember reading years back, which is like, if you're extremely good at what you do, you'll have no problem having a successful business. And it sounds like you've taken that approach in terms of, I want to know everything that is and really research to give my clients and the people I'm working with the absolute best.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm very inspired by Alan. He and Rachel both, and members of their team, Craig Rasmussen and Elias Scarr. Like, they all have these great stories and these backgrounds, but all still very similar in this. Like, I'm obsessed with this, and you just see them dive into that, that mastered niche of theirs, and it's very inspiring. I learn a lot from that team.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to sort of define the term, we've got like the older adult. What? Because people might be thinking, do I fall into that category? Do you have a definition of when you count someone as the older adult? How's that work?
Yeah, kind of. You look at it chronologically, 50 and up if I had to put a number on it. But really, we're looking at people biologically and how they're aging. So typically, we're kind of looking at someone that has, 2 to 3 physical limitations and or a chronic disease that is now altering the structure status of their body, like an arthritis, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, something that is sarcopenia, something that's really starting to affect how they coordinate their body, their movements, and could ultimately have a major impact on their quality of life. That's really where I'm looking at. And that could be 35 or 70, you know? So I hate to pigeonhole and be like, you're 49, you're not in the group yet. Like that's not my concern. But, I've had some 30, 35-year-old clients with severe arthritis of their hips, pending hip replacement. And yeah, I'm working with them for 10 years now. Like that's not a huge concern for me and what those numbers lie.
Yeah. Okay. That makes perfect sense. And of course, by and large, it's a good demographic to work with if you're a coach, because generally these people can afford to pay you for your services, whereas if you're targeting those young athletes, up and comers, they haven't got the finances necessarily to pay for expertise. So we talked about
that, and we're living longer, so we actually have more business.
Yes, that makes perfect sense as well. And you talked about sort of things that obviously age is a factor, but the other factors that go into determining if someone falls into this category. Now, when you start working with them, so like if you're working with 25-year-old guys who want to look good for the beach, you can kind of get into the headspace. But when they come to training, I imagine most of them don't imagine lifting weights or pushing a sled or whatever these sort of things. That's not how they picture training as an older adult. What are maybe some of the fears or the concerns they have coming in to training with you?
I had a lady come in one day, and she was probably 5'7" fit, and walks in and she goes, "Hey, I heard you train older people here." And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Where are all the chairs?" She's looking around, and I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, the senior groups were supposed to sit in chairs, and where are the little weights, the pink and the purple weights?" And she's like, "Do you rent out the space from a team or what? How does?" And I'm like, "This is it. We use this stuff." And she's like, "We lift these weights?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, physically starts backing away. Not here. And I go, whoa, hold on. What did you said you just retired? Like, what were you doing? And she goes, "Well, I was a farmer." And I'm like, "Did you do a lot of sitting down while you were farming?" And she's like, "No, very physically demanding job." So I would do you a disservice and injustice if I said, "Hey, you're one of the most physically fit individuals from the demand of your job. Come sit down now. Let's exercise." I'm going to make you get old. Person. So really there's that stigma out there is don't lift anything over 30 pounds, never move quickly, no power training, don't reach overhead or lift overhead, don't lift up anything too heavy from the floor. You can't do anything dynamic or explosive, throwing, releasing, jumping, bounding, skipping, that kind of stuff. Golf and tennis and walking is enough resistance and fitness to help with osteopenia and sarcopenia, all these. And so those are all things we have to break down, right from the get-go. Like, kettlebells don't cause back injuries. Barbells don't rupture discs. Like, there's a lot of mindsets of like, well, I hear a lot of people get hurt using those. It's just a tool. We have to get that mindset through them that it's how I'm going to teach you to use these things. What's one of the goals you had? I want to be able to pick up my how big is your grandkid? 35 pounds. Well, that kettlebell is 35 pounds, right? So here's our goal is to get you to deadlift that and swing it around, throw it on your shoulder, whatever you're going to do, right? So you just kind of got to put it to them in a little bit more like real life term of like, oh, maybe I don't want to come in here and sit down for an hour when I'm trying to stay on my feet, trying to stay independent. The big fears we get are I'm afraid of falling down. I'm afraid of losing my independence. You hear those two things all the time. So me having you sit down and do little movements and basics, I get it if you've never trained, you're 90 and that's a starting point. But even then I'm like, let's have you do that for a couple weeks and then graduate. Let's get you out of the chair. Let's get up and moving around. Let's get you away from your walker. It's just an educational opportunity for us. Because what they see on magazines and on TV is basically all they know about it. Mm-hmm. But they know somewhere through the process of like resistance training is going to be, it's going to help me somehow. It's going to be beneficial. So, all right, let's take that opportunity. Let's educate on top of it. And the next thing you know, you got people doing trap bar deadlifts and swinging kettlebells and throwing sandballs. And you're like, yeah, We, like we turn the corner here. And now we post about that and share that, and we're breaking down that stigma. Hopefully, less and less and less times we have to have that conversation with people.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And of course, yeah, showcasing people doing it will definitely help to break down that barrier. But I was thinking, as you were talking about, one of the key things in any sort of coach-client relationship is getting that buy-in. And so you talked about, some of the elements, the real-world benefits for them. I suppose that's pretty key in getting that buy-in from someone who's a little bit reticent at first, bit concerned about it. Is, as you said, you want to pick up your grandson or something, it's £35. That's a really great example that's going to bring it home to them. And so I suppose, again, trying to dig a little deeper with the client and find their why, and that's obviously something you will have to do, but it'll probably be different to most of the clients I'm dealing with. So
have you seen I'm sorry to interrupt you, but have you seen the kettlebell commercial with the old man? I think it's like a Visa commercial. Have you seen that?
I'm not seeing it, no.
Old guy, and he's in his shed, and he finds this old kettlebell, and he goes, aha, and he has this idea, and he drags this thing out, and he does like a high pull, and then he tries to do like a kneader press, like a standing incline, and he throws his back out, and he falls down. All the neighbors are like, what are you doing, old man? And he goes back inside, and you see him pondering, and he's like, okay, I got to get serious. And he comes out, he's got his jog suit on, the Rocky music's playing, and every day he picks up the kettlebell, tries to press it out in front of him, he falls down. The kids are making fun of him, they're picking up their toy animals. It goes through all the seasons. Wintertime comes, Christmas lights, grandpa's getting stronger, all this. Goes over to his daughter's house, walks in, he's got a present in his hand, sees his granddaughter. Granddaughter comes running over, he opens the present, it's the star to go on the tree. He picks her up and presses her out, and she puts the tree on, and I'm bawling, right? And so all these people are sending me this going, if Rob could make a commercial, this would be it, right? And now we're like, well, that's real function. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great commercial as well.
Yeah, 100%. Like right away, you're like, I get it. Like that, he was training the most functional pattern he could think is like this 30-pound kettlebell. There's obviously other stuff we could do to help him get there without throwing his back out in the beginning. But it's truly an idea of like, this is going to be something I'm going to use day to day. And so a lot of our programming is we have DLF programming, daily life functions. We have ADLs, activities of daily living, different targeted program designs for different levels. Like the most basic, I got to be able to get up and down out of a chair, maybe navigate up and down stairs, get in and out of a car, like the most basic movement patterns to let's get up and down off the floor. Let's do it with weight. Let's get up and down steps. Let's, with weight, let's transfer in different directions. Let's pick up load from the ground and put it over our head. Like then you get a little more advanced. And ultimately we have just a general strength and conditioning program that they can do. They've graduated up, to be able to train anything and everything. But even in that, we're hinging, we're rowing, we're pressing, we're splitting our feet, we're transferring load. If I can do those 5 things every day, I'm doing them justice.
Mm-hmm. So what comes across there is there's a lot of similarities here, obviously training an older adult than there is training someone younger. So there'll be plenty of crossover or similarities, and the underlying principles may well be the same, but there will also be differences, I'm sure. So can you highlight some of the key differences that maybe come to mind?
Sure. I mean, when we look with younger individuals, maybe we're not having to modify or adjust the lift as much for a limitation that's coming about. So we could get a little bit more of a pure movement pattern, knowing that, all right, I can work a clean and jerk with a barbell because this pronated, high elbow shelf position is catchable. Where with my older pops, we have to use fat bells or dumbbells so they can manipulate the implement where they want. They can hold more neutral, internal rack position, better with their shoulders, their impingements, anything else. So I can kind of manipulate, I guess, a little bit more, what's the term? Like more of a primal movement pattern, I guess, for Olympic lifts, powerlifting movements and such with my younger, less injured. But I also, you get some older folks that move really well and we can still do that. But for the majority, that's one big difference. Volume and the amount of, work capacity we have. We have some very experienced, 16, 17-year-old clients now that I've been training from 60 until 76. They can do a ton of work capacity. They can hang with anybody I have, but they've been trained for a decade and a half to do that. The average 75-year-old, no way. They'd be gassed after our warm-up, you know what I mean? We can build them up. So we're going to have better opportunities to work higher capacities, better volumes and such with our younger demographics. Don't have to worry so much about modifications for limitations. Recovery periods are going to be a lot less. and we're learning more about that too, to really maximize good recovery periods for our youth athlete. You really need to master it with the aging athlete or the older adult, and maybe implementing more therapeutic strategies as we age too, to help in that recovery process. And the value of sleep becomes a whole. Obviously, you should at 14, 16, 18, you should be sleeping well, but you got a little more vigor in the body, and you can, still perform at a decently high level without a huge rest, and background behind you on that. Where with the aging older adults, maybe not so much. Rest really becomes a bigger priority. Good sound sleep, higher quality nutrition. We're going to have issues with getting body fat off of people, slower metabolisms, again, lower work capacity. So it'd be hard to capitalize on that. So we have some little challenges here and there, but things that you take into account and understand we're going to work with this well. In the progressions in which I would pursue a 20-year-old to achieve in 12 weeks, I'd do with 16 or 20 weeks with an older adult, right? So I could still get there. It's just going to take me slower, maybe more lengthened out little microcycles to really get up to that, Okay. But ultimately, the training styles are very similar and the progressions are good. I just have all those concerns, to kind of take into account and give me some more weeks to allow that to occur. Then I think we end up in the same place for the most part.
Yeah, that sounds good. And it just sounds like really great coaching. So, you're working with who you're working with and what they have and what they can sort of tolerate in terms of maybe range of motion, that sort of thing, and then progress or regress from there. Which whoever you're working with, you should be considering. Because I've seen plenty of 20-year-olds that have limited range of motion, etc., etc. So it applies across all age ranges, perhaps just more often in the older adult, perhaps. So there's two things that sprang to mind as you were talking. So we talked about limitations and things. I imagine many of these men and women are coming to you and they have pre-existing injuries. So what are the most common ones that you're seeing, and what impact does that have on your work?
In 21 years, I've yet to meet someone where I just had a bunch of circles, like none, like they all come with something, and it's usually more than one. And the first one is usually the reason they're there the most. I got a bad back, my knee needs to be replaced, whatever that first thing is. But often it's the second and third that kind of caused the knee, caused the back issue. So getting that background is pretty important of all of it. Most common back injuries, frozen shoulders. Those are kind of the ones I see the most. Back and hip are really the ones I probably see the most. And then we have a lot of clients that just can't put their arms vertically over their head because not a whole lot of demand to unless you're resistance training, So they just lose that ability, and they're out doing something one day or attempting to do something one day that's outside the norm. They hurt their shoulder and they're like, hey, this is a bigger issue than I thought. I hear this one often. Picking up the suitcase, putting it in the overhead compartment. Pre-COVID, we heard it a lot more, but we were struggling.
They're doing really good visualization at home of their travels now.
Yeah. Now it's like to the couch, to the fridge, and the toilet back. Yeah, but that's travels. That was a big one for us. It was like, I don't want you to have to ask somebody to lift your bag up there. I want you to do it, own it. No, I don't want help out with my groceries. I got this. I want them to have that independence. So. Those are probably the more common ones that we see. I think I've helped more clients through knee replacements than any other replacement surgery. I haven't had a client do a shoulder replacement yet. Tons of shoulder surgeries. We work really closely with a great physio named Dan McLean, excuse me, who's just about 20 minutes away from us here. And he's seen probably 70 to 80% of our customers at least once. It kind of gives me a background of here's what to do, not to do. Maybe I need to see him again in 8 weeks, maybe not. He's just off and running. And so that really helps us a lot. So I'm not really stepping out of a scope of practice by any means. We have good guidance. And working with those limitations, a lot of them, it's just weakness. It's not really something they need to rehabilitate. It's just weakness that needs to be developed and built into a non-weak or strong area. I know how to do that. I don't need to come in and know exactly what to do with your torn supraspinatus. You don't have one. You're frozen. Your shoulder's just frozen. It's not moving well. I got this. I know exactly what to do and how to build that back. And those are just experiences you get working with the clients, working with the PTs, going and learning from other professionals and interning and shadowing and going to conferences, and you start to gather all that. That's all applicable information that, it builds a new level for you to be like, yeah, I'm comfortable. This is now in my scope.
Yeah.
To an extent,
Okay. Actually, I've got to go on the knee replacements there, because actually just this week, one of my clients who's late 60s, he's just found out that he's going to need one, and we're talking. The consultant said within 2 years he thinks it's going to be. So it's not immediate, but now I've obviously got to start learning a bit more about that. So any resources or places you would immediately say that I should be looking at for that?
Yeah, you go to my YouTube and look at the Timmerman approach presentation I did. It's probably 6 or 8 months ago. I think I did it last summer, and it's called the Timmerman approach. It's based off of a shot putter named Ulf Timmerman, who was in the 80s, early 90s. Basically, the story goes, I don't know if this is 100% true, but from what my coach told me, is Ulf experienced a ACL injury to one knee and a MCL, medial meniscus, on the other knee in the same impact moment. So basically, knee flexion, squatting, deadlifting, all this knee flexion-based exercises were out. So to get him strong, they went to a posterior chain dominant hip hinging mechanics only, and vertical split stance, so step ups. So they just took squatting, deadlifting, and split squats out of the equation. Trained him for 18 months. In his second competition back, he threw 2.5 feet further, set a new world record.
Wow. Okay.
And the issue that came about was that he was so quad dominant, hip flexor dominant, he was so front body dominant that by just spending 18 months to level him out, focusing on the back of the body, made him a more dynamic, explosive athlete, well-rounded athlete. So that approach works really well for knee injury clients, hip injury clients. You can almost program them exactly the same. Is that let's reduce the amount of direct downward pressure on these joints for now. Let's push most of that through the hip instead of through the knee. Or if the hip injury, we'll try to stabilize and build the strength around the hip injury and find a hip mechanic that will be comfortable for them to build through. And then we can shorten those levers with kneeling hinges, bands assist, all this to deload, build up to a body weight, build up to an overload, progressive load, and so on. Eventually get them much stronger on the posterior side. And if we look at the glute and the hip flexor as like a pulley, let's say it's 70-30, and we get that closer to 60-40 or 50-50. If we can get that joint is going to work more functionally, efficient, and for the joint above it at the lumbar, for the joint below it at the knee. Then we go to the knee, quad and the hamstring. Let's look at that. Anterior tib versus soleus gastroc. Let's level that. And so you just kind of start looking at this going, well, you're pretty anterior dominant all the way around. Let's just train the backside of the body for a while, and we're going to see a lot of proof in the pudding. So to implement this, I learned about this in high school. I have a client in 2005 who says, I need bilateral knee replacements in a year or two. Can you help me get strong? We implement Timmerman. It's been 16 years. She still hasn't had them. So it's just a strategy for us. We're we know that the more that I start to flex her at the knee and such, but she still has good quad development. From agonist to antagonist movement actions, you're always going to get engagement, right? But it's not just directly pressured through the knee via all the squatting and everything else that we can do. So those kinds of strategies, I think, can go a long way. Definitely help people out. The hamstring glute development aspect are the two I think that'll be most addressed. They'll be most beneficial for your buddy coming, going forward here.
Okay, excellent. I'll give that video a watch, and I'll probably be emailing with some more questions as well.
We can part two. I'm happy to do it. We can talk more.
Absolutely. So the other point I said earlier on, there was something. Now you talked about the importance of recovery, things like sleep and good nutrition, and then I was thinking as you were saying that about anabolic resistance, which is something I hear talking about older adults. They're almost muscle protein synthetic response sort of is muted compared for the same amount of protein as a younger person if they were eating the similar quantities and all these sort of things, and basically that almost they have to pay a bit more attention to detail perhaps and dot more I's and cross more T's than a youngster can get away with for various reasons. But in terms of drilling home the importance of those lifestyle strategies, that's one thing I'd like to know. Do you have some habit building things you work on, or is it a case by case basis? Well, actually, maybe let's do that first, and I'll get my follow up question.
Yeah, nutritionally, that's something I leave to our dietitians and registered dietitians and nutritionists and such. It's an area that we try to provide general educational information. We just had a newsletter. My wife is a holistic nutritionist and comes from that background from school, along with biology. So she has a really good understanding of the body. Takes a very whole food based approach, and we discuss the benefits of just reducing as much processed food, eating as locally grown, locally picked, daily picked type foods that you can get, that your body's going to respond and fuel wise will work more efficiently and probably a lot cleaner fuel through the gas through the tank, if you know what I mean. So we will advise in that direction, but to come down and say here's exactly what you should eat, this kind of thing. We have medications to consider. You have different diseases and different limitations that we have to consider. And if I'm encouraging, you got to do this with this supplement and that backfires with their high cholesterol medication they have and they drop dead or something, like that's one of my greatest fears is like, I can't go and be like, you got to have this special fruit juice. And they're like pineapple juice and my arthritis meds. And now, I'm in the ER. So there's a lot of that comes in. It's like, I'm going to let somebody who really knows that world well do that.
Yeah.
And I'll stick to my lane over here, helping them get strong. But it's a member of the team. Yeah. We definitely have to communicate and be on the same page. So we will provide some general information like that, that we think a whole food, plant-based or at least organic and locally grown and raised and fed meats. I think that's a better direction or an educational avenue we can give them. But beyond that, we don't go too deep into it.
Okay, cool.
We will talk about like how often, how you need to eat before you exercise and after. Might even throw out some percentages of proteins to carbs and fats. Give some examples, some things here and there. But again, I leave that to her to put in. Rarely, if ever, do we get anything real specific.
Okay, that makes sense. And so one of the things, I mean, in my experience as with sort of family members as they've got older, and I have clients in their 70s, they tend to year on year they sleep less and eat less. Is that something that you've seen with people you're working with as a general trend?
So what I've noticed is those that don't eat well sleep more. And the ones that eat better sleep less. They're more vibrant, more energetic, more engaged in their day. So that leads you to believe, like, is this sluggy processed food? Maybe they have more than 2 or 3 medications that they take. So again, processed, non-natural stuff coming into the body. Is that revving them down so much that what used to be 8 hours of sleep now requires 10, maybe even 12? Mm-hmm. You see, like some folks that are really, really sick, they sleep away half the day.
Yeah.
What are you that tired from? You don't do, if you were running a half marathon every day and chopping a cord of wood to stack outside, I'd say, I get it. You need 12 hours, right? But that's not happening. So why are you so fatigued and tired? I wonder if it's the fuel that they've put in, how slow it'll process, that kind of thing. I think that's a little bit more that I notice. So we have such great tools, from our smartwatches and halos and everything else you can use to track your quality of sleep and how much you're getting, and then detailing in the foods that they consume and they put in there and seeing some of those correlations all the way down to pulsometers given their O2 levels, resting heart rate, hydration levels with some of the scales you can stand on. You get some pretty good information on folks to see how well are you. Are you just, thin and have good genetics, or are you actually taking really good care of yourself and that's why you look and are able to perform the way you do? Or do we need to make some major changes? And this is hitting home pretty close for me. My father has not been well, and I've been out, in Florida for a week helping with him, and just got back a few days ago. And so a lot of that is hitting very close to home. Fortunately, I'm seeing some more of the examples of having to sleep more and not as active. And I'm like, man, we got to change this, So it hits like that. You're like, this message, I want to ring it out. I want to start telling everybody, like, let's not get to this point.
Yeah.
And as coaches, we can educate and share, but by highlighting your clients, that reaches even further. You know what I mean? That helps get it out there. So yeah, that's a battle that's pretty close to the heart right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I hope you're doing better. I know you mentioned that before. So, and I guess is it almost a mindset thing as well? The men and women that come to you, they've taken ownership of, I want the best quality of life, and then obviously they get the benefit of training with you, but almost the fact that they've made that decision, their mindset's in a good place, and it almost feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy or like a positive upward spiral. I'm going to be fit, I'm going to be healthy, and then things fall into place. How important is that mindset? Very important.
And it's so awesome you just brought it up, because we were just talking about this the other day. We're like, what is their why? What is their reason? What was the moment that made this switch? And I'm kind of going back and like having conversations with each of my clients, and I go, what got you to this point? And one's like, I had a heart attack, and that was my moment. The other one, I fell and I hurt myself. And I'm like, well, short of like a catastrophe that either changed you physically or you almost died, like, is there another way that we can like encourage that switch of the mindset, right? Where they can just be like, oh my God, like, seeing another family member that is just not capable of doing anything, and you're like, that person's 65. You know what I mean? And I've got a 90-year-old in here running circles around them. Like, for them, like, could we create momentum in moments like that would change that and give them momentum to help them be like, I need to go do that. Unfortunately, we don't see a way of like really producing that, but taking advantage of it when it does. Like, when you get that person that's like, I need to make a change, I need to go, then let's go. I'm with you. You know what I mean? We'll put it all together. We have online tools. I have homework I give them. Let's get these weight sets in this band so you can do 2 days at home on your own. Follow our videos. I'll do 2 days in here. Like, we take advantage of that and go with it. But I wish we could find more ways to like create that mind moment. Like, remember, I don't know if you have this, but in school, you're 16, you're about to get your driver's license, and they have a video they show you called Blood on the Asphalt. And as you're watching this, it's just all these terrible car accidents. And the whole time you're like, holy shit, I don't want to drive. Like, this is terrifying. I'm never going on the freeway. But what it does is it gets stuck in your mind. You're like, I don't need to speed. I need to use my traffic signals. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it really gets in your mind of like, okay, I got to take this serious. Like, how can I create that? Could I just show videos of like super obese people who can't move and they have to knock down walls and take them out with pitchforks and be like, that's going to be you if we don't change, your eating habits. And they're like, okay, let's do this. I want to have that moment. I just don't know how to do it. I think it'd be really fun to help encourage those moments for people. But
I mean, if you could, obviously that'd be worth, it's priceless if you can kind of dig into that. But yeah, it suddenly popped in my head the mindset. Like, I was thinking, so my grandmother's 90, and we call her Action Gran because she's like just been doing stuff. She's not still riding horses now, but she was riding horses like into her 80s and going to Patagonia and like trekking up and stuff. But it's and I know that she's so different in many respects to my other grandparents in terms of what they thought was possible, and I think that's to some extent has led to her having good health for so long.
Oh, for sure. I mean, tell Gran that she's my hero, because I love hearing that. Like, that is fantastic, and that's I bet there's a lot. I'm doing an article right now that correlates grip strength to quality of life and how healthy people are. There's great research that supports that. And I bet you her grip strength is one of the better ones. I bet her resting heart rate is below 60, which is an indicator of a healthier lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, I bet you there are a couple of those things that she just knocks it out of the park on because she's been so active and put such a priority on that. But I bet she doesn't sleep 12 hours a night either, though, does she?
No, absolutely. She's one of those ones that's, like up late, she probably sleeps less than me. Like, she's ready to go.
But I bet you she has buddies that like sleep half the day, and you're like, why are you tired? We were playing pinochle for 40 minutes and you're out. Like, come on, like there's got to be. I think there's definitely something to that, and it sounds like your Gran's definitely got the right mindset.
So you mentioned grip strength as a really good indicator. Is there anything else that you like, sort of relatively simple test people could be thinking or checking in with?
The grip strength one is great for. It was accurate. I can send you the article for this. It's accurate within 96%. And so what that means is you do a grip strength test and it says you're at risk, you're normal, or you're advanced. And in the at risk, it says you have at least 2 like high health concern issues. You have 2 or less days of physical activity a week. You get poor quality of sleep. Your hydration levels are low. And when they went back, people that tested there and they went back and actually surveyed them, that was accurate within 96%. So pretty accurate, right? So then you get people who are like, well, I'm just going to train my grip strength so I can kick ass on that score. That's not the point. The point is like, you just take the person off the street and say, squeeze this. I can almost tell you exactly what you are, right? You probably have 2 diseases. You probably don't exercise, yada, yada, yada. Or, holy shit, you're the 90th percentile. I bet you exercise every day. I bet, you can just look at their hands and see their calories and be like, you're an active person. I bet you sleep well. I bet you eat pretty well. You can get some natural assumptions from a $30 device that gives you 2 squeezes in 10 seconds, and you've got it. Mm-hmm. So I'd love something like that could help us, cut down a bunch of ideas or things we have to discuss or figure out pretty much right away. Again, there's always going to be outliers, but get you pretty close. There's a real basic test, a hinge and reach standing with a tape measure at hip height along the wall. And you just hinge and reach out with arms, right arm only, left arm only, both. And there's scores there that give you high mobilities, and high mobilities, normal or poor, give you high risk fall, not a risk fall, or in the middle. So you can have someone perform a simple hinge and reach test and know if there's someone you have to be really concerned with, we have to implement, fall risk protocol style of training, or are they pretty good and we can move on. Mm-hmm. Those 2 are big ones for us that help us right away. I'll be able to look at like shoulder instability, range of motion kind of stuff from a different series of chest pulls and face pulls that we'll do with some different bands. I do a step up test with our clients to see from a 2-inch step all the way up to, 12 or even an 18-inch, depending on how capable they are. A sit to stand test, and then can they get from floor to feet? We'll test that to see how they do, if they're capable of attempting it. Yeah. Not, I need to help them back up, or if they just, they could do it and they're fine. Those, what was that, 6 things? That can give me a very good idea of what someone, is capable of doing, give me a pretty good idea of what kind of habits they have, and help me in my design of my program from the get-go, what I need to target and pursue from that point.
Okay, yeah, and I think you made a brilliant point with the grip strength one, because I'm sure a lot of people, when they heard that, their instinct is, oh, I'll just train my grip, but it's more, it gives you an overview of what their physical capacity is and what they do day to day, rather than being, you just need to train to have an incredible crushing grip. And it's a bit like, I remember hearing that if people that floss their teeth every day have a lower risk of cardiovascular disease. Now, maybe there's something about flossing, but it's probably more because they're the sort of person that takes care of themselves and flosses, and then they probably also eat well and they exercise, and it's an indicator of their approach to their body, as it were, and keeping things healthy, and having a good grip strength is probably, I imagine, a similar thing.
Yeah, I remember Dan John talking about ask someone if they floss and take a look at their car, and that'll tell you exactly what they're like. Do they value taking care of their body? That's the flossing. And when you look in their cars, they're just stuff everywhere and wrappers and this and that, or like what's in there. And he goes, so I did this with, I think he's talking about, he did it with his wife, and he looked in the back of her car and she had 2 kettlebells and a Gatorade bottle. And he's like, will you marry me? Like, right? Like, she flossed and she has kettlebells in her back seat. She's the girl.
She's a keeper, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, Dan's good. We had Dan on the show end of 2020. He's excellent.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 3 months into our shutdown, we did like an education week, and I had a guest on every day, and he was our keynote at the end of the week, and he was so great. It was scheduled for 60. He went to 90, and I'm like, Dan, I feel terrible. I'm keeping you. And he goes, let's keep going. And I'm like, I don't keep you here all day. He hears stories, and his books are fantastic, and he's just like a hero to me, and how he programs. We've had so many physical limitations that are similar. Both come from the throwing background. Like, he's just, he's someone I've learned a ton from, and getting to chat with him. Every story has something that you take away from it going, yeah, I could do that a little better, Yeah, he's
great.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. So we had you talked briefly about if I get these people to do these 5 things every day, then we're winning, right? And I think so. There's a hinge, a pull, a press, sort of like a split stance type movement. I think was the other one a weighted carry?
Yep.
Okay. So those 5 things. Absolute gold. Is there anything else where, like, what's the 6th? What's the next priority if there is one on that list? Is there anything else?
Yeah, we have those 5, and instead of a press, I just call it an overhead action. So we have hinge, row, split stance, loaded carry, and something overhead, which can be a pull from overhead, a raised overhead, a pressed overhead, something along those lines. But number 6 is what we call a feature, and it's a landmine or a pivot point. And basically, a pivot point is a landmine bolted to the ceiling, not literally, but like a landmine bolted to the ceiling. The pivot would come from above. We'll use like Olympic ring straps hooked to a barbell or a Smith bar, you know what I mean? Or excuse me, a Swiss bar, something along those lines where I can lever momentum. We can do power training from there. I can work increased ranges of motion, split stance, jammers, pushes, presses, rows, just very different angled, various attacks. And it's great for our older pops that get to basically like pendulum a weight uphill, and then they have to lower it back down. So you're almost getting like forced eccentric training, which is really, really beneficial. So we love to feature that. And the flip side of it is the pivot point from the floor, which is a landmine. And we'll do those from a squat or a hinged row or hooking a belt to it and doing a belt squat via the leverage, all the way up to our leaning presses in different rows, and our our windshield wipers and washing machines and side-to-side chops and just core components we can do from it. When you take the leverage of someone who isn't super stable or has a great range of motion, and you lean the leverage of their body into the levers of another point, we can increase range of motion, we can increase the overall load moved. And so we can make more mobility, create greater stability because of the pivoting nature of it, and slowly add more weight to create greater strength, and then do that more dynamically to create power. Like, that's a pretty featured tool for us that I use every session. Mm-hmm. So that's been kind of like the missing piece in the last 5 or 6 years that we've really found super valuable. Like, we got to do this daily. If I only get to see them twice a week or maybe 3 days, we got to do this daily. Okay. And that at home online, is near impossible. We have some little things we can do depending on some of the equipment they have, but it really needs to be done, in-house, in shop, with them when they're here. So that's a big one. And then our 2 modalities it's kind of a cheat, but we just call it fall prevention, which is balance, coordination, stability, mobility, agility, all those, from our movement prep primers to our cool downs and, correctives. So we have that one. And then we have a power training component, where every day I want to have them, whatever ability level it is, try to transition something quickly and then have to decelerate that something and change its direction. And coming from the world of power, where it's like box jumps and bounds, transitioning to that where we can't really leave the ground, or we're not super stable leaving the ground, let's learn to transition it into something we can let go of. So slamming, throwing, chopping, tossing, we do a lot of that with our clients as we build up their abilities to do so. And they love it. They love letting go of stuff. I mean, everybody likes throwing things, You go to a river and you're watching, the first thing everybody does is give a rock and throw it. Like, people like to throw stuff. So you get to do this in a pretty violent way. And so it's pretty therapeutic. You see new levels of, fearless Fran that comes out, and all of a sudden the face goes and she's slamming away, and you're like, yeah. She's like, my neighbor is such a dick, and just like see all this come out. And I'm like, good for you, man, let it out, but that never occurs anywhere else. It's just in that moment where they get to slam stuff and throw stuff. I'm like, this is great. I just saved you $500 in therapy by slamming that thing, on the ground. Like, it's a really fun piece. We never get to let go. Every weight room you go into, like, you don't get to throw anything, Everything that you lift and accelerate, you're like, oh, wait, I got to put it back down gentle. Like this, I get to just throw it. Like, who cares where it lands? Let's just throw it as far as I can. That's just a freeing moment, a controlled moment where you're just like, let it fly. Yeah. Just let it go. It's very fun. And it brings out a whole new level for folks where they ask for it. Like, I don't get to throw anything today. And I'm like, all right, grab the sand ball. Let's go outside real quick. Like, they want to do it. Yeah. It's a big piece for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So they get to channel that rage. And I'm really pleased you gave us the detail on the power training, because you mentioned it a couple of times, and of course it is one of the things that as we age, power production so often drops off, and what can you do to counteract that? And not everyone's going to be snatching body weight or whatever when they're 60. So
yeah.
That's a really really informative, but you painted some nice pictures, and I could visualize them doing it, but also I could picture some of my clients absolutely loving that.
What was really fun, to give you this, I went on vacation and left my clients in charge with one of my employees, and I said, when they do the slams, I want you to put these pieces of paper down there. And I had taken pictures of myself, like, right here, like I gave them targets, like I photocopied my face. And so he goes, all right, everybody get ready to slam, flip your picture. And they all flip. And he goes, they were destroyed at the end.
Yeah.
People were slamming on them so hard. And the workout number one was super hard. And they're like, Rob made this workout, so let him have it. And he sent me a video and they were just going to town. I was like, there was a whole new level of intensity that came out. It became a really fun thing for us to do. And I'm like, you guys are a little too angry at me for something. It was really fun. So you want to get a good laugh out of your client, but see them turn up the juice a little, try that.
Yeah, it's a good tip. As you said, well, make it enjoyable for them. And like you said, they're asking to do this stuff, but when you put yourself as the target, it's suddenly so much more interesting. I'm quite concerned about this, the mess my face would be in if my clients were given the same opportunity.
Yeah, it won't be recognizable at the end.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I like that. All right, so we've got a couple of questions. We're sort of running up on time here a little bit. How frequently are your clients training? Are we sort of every other day type thing, couple of times? Obviously, their schedule's a big factor, but in the ideal world, what sort of is the average that you're getting people to do?
Most of my clients I see at least twice a week, and they're doing 2 days of homework. And that's one thing that our COVID shutdown really brought out. A new piece of our business is our online option. And so now weekly I have 6 different workouts for them to choose from. They could do, we don't train on Wednesdays or on the weekend. So clients will do like Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, and then they could train one of our online options Wednesday and Saturday, have a true rest day on Sunday, or just, we have other options, go for a walk, go for a swim, for a hike, this kind of stuff. So really I want them to be active every day. And so we maximize that pretty well. And the home workouts they're not simple, but knowing that they have, all of our clients have to buy a kit, this fitness kit that we have. It's a door anchor, 4 different bands, 2 sets of dumbbells and a kettlebell. And if they have all of that, it's about $150, $200 investment. And we're just like, that's an issue. I mean, you're going to pay more than that for a year membership at a gym. You'll probably pay triple that, but you get to keep all this stuff and use it. Mm-hmm. So they get that home component. Our clients really embrace that. They create these rooms and garages, and they're buying rubber floor, and they're like, I want a landmine. I love the ski erg. I want to get a ski erg. And so we have like 7 or 8 clients now that have wall mounted racks in their garages, and like they're really getting into it. So we have that option. And then most of them I see in here, at least once, but most of them twice a week. And or they're training with me live virtually like we are now. Okay. I see you, you see me, and we're together online. But, that's, if I get 3 really good days out of them, 3 to 4, the other days we have like pre-recorded, like a therapy mobility sessions. They're 20 minutes long. It's, thoracic rotation, bird dogs, foam rolling, fascia release, guided breathing, stretching, that kind of stuff. I record new ones each month for them. If they have a hip or a knee or a shoulder issue, we have little primers, like little rehab, videos they can do that just give a little extra emphasis. I could do this on Saturday morning, just get a little extra work on my shoulders, anti-arthritic stuff for their hands, their grip strength stuff they can do at home to work on that. So we've really utilized our online like membership site kind of access to get a couple more days that are specifically guided and directed from me. So now instead of you just get 2 days a week with me, really you get 4. You just don't need to necessarily be right in front of me every time to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's taken us to a whole new level for our folks of how efficient they are, how good that, quality they feel, and everything else. We're achieving things a lot more efficiently in shorter, time chunks as well right now. So we're the last year has really kind of forced us into that, but it's been a very good thing. We've really taken advantage of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you have to look for the positives in things, but I think certainly in my business as well, it's one of those things you've had to pivot and then or not necessarily even pivot, but just okay, how can I get that service to them? And I'm pretty useless with technology, but even I've muddled along and found a way, and it's definitely a benefit going forward when we're back to normal. This will be something that stays around. So some of those services. So
part of our
sense.
For sure.
So all of your clients sort of essentially currently like they're a hybrid. They're with you and they're online, or do you have anyone who's exclusively online?
Quite a few clients that aren't quite ready to come out and like be in person just yet. Remember, California, we're still 90% of the state is still on a 10%, capacity. Like we're still not open. But I think as more vaccinations go through, clients get more comfortable coming out. I think we'll see more in person. But those folks that are only online right now, they were training with me 2 or 3 days in person. So they've learned how to squat and deadlift, this and that. We have maybe 8 clients who have, during that time, maybe 8 or 10 that have come to us brand new and only trained with us online, and they're doing great. They buy that kit, we get our stuff going. We definitely have a greater reach now. I have a client in Canada, and I think we have like 15 clients from different states outside of California. So we got a good reach, in terms of, one guy training 40 people and be able to reach out to 14 different states or 12 different states or whatever we have. Pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice option to it.
That's awesome. Right, so as I said, we're sort of getting up on time, so I've got a little quick fire round for you, some either or questions.
Okay.
So not fitness related at all, but pizza or burger?
Pizza.
Chocolate or peanut butter?
Peanut butter.
A beach holiday or city break?
Oh, I don't really like either. Somewhere cold.
Staycation. Somewhere cold.
No, I like to travel. I just like to go to like cold, rocky, mountainous environment. Iceland, Alaska, so I guess if I could do like a city like Toronto or, Seattle, like somewhere up, I'll go with that one.
Okay, cool. Right, steak rare or well done?
Well done.
Okay. Oh, that's a risky answer. That is.
Yeah. No, I know.
No one. Everyone's booing. Scrambled or poached for your eggs?
Scrambled.
All right. Next question is: tell me something about yourself that people probably don't already know.
Oh man. Yeah. Thank you. That's the one I was going to go with. I could tell that. 4 years in a row, I took ballroom dance in college, and 2 of the 4 years I was voted best dancer and had to perform with the instructor at our closing ceremonies that we did for the retirement communities in our neighborhood. This was at the university level. So I danced with like a 65-year-old retired professional dancer twice and held my own.
The question I have is what happened the other 2 years? Why weren't you best then?
I was a freshman and a sophomore. They were like, you're okay, but you're not there quite.
It took a while to get the skill. That's impressive. I would certainly not be winning any best answer awards. Okay, so final question from me is, if I had an address book I could get access to anyone, who should I interview next?
Oh boy, well, I would have told you Dan right from the get-go. Evan Osar, if you haven't talked to Evan Osar yet, Evan is my bald brother from another mother, as we call each other. He's my best friend and a fantastic guy. He's like athletic trainer meets physical therapist meets chiropractor meets doctor meets trainer. He's just a great combo and a very good resource of all this. He's fantastic. Nick Tuminello, if you haven't talked to Nick, he's a very good dude. Has great exercises, progressions, regressions. Some of the best programming components I've experienced come from him. Mark Nutting is great for fitness business. Mm-hmm. He wrote the book, The Business of Personal Training. It's been out maybe 2 years now. That is the textbook that's used at most universities in the U.S. to teach personal training. So he's an author there. Alan and Rachel, you know them. Dan. Rick Howard. Yeah, Rick Howard. If you haven't met Rick, Rick is a university professor and a strongman.
Okay.
And he teaches for the NSCA. He teaches for the Kyler School in Iceland. He's very well-rounded dude. But you'll see him, and he's got all these rashes on his arms. He's like, we were doing the Stones this weekend, and I'm like, oh my God. He's like, I finally got the 350. I'm like, you're amazing, and the guy's. He's something else. So yeah, I'm happy to give you contact info for any of them.
Yeah, definitely. I'll hit you up for those if I can get hold of some of those. That'd be brilliant. Actually, talking about strongmen and aging, I interviewed Odd Hogan, who's like one of the strongest 70-year-olds you'll ever meet. Like the guys in basically like a Jack Santa Claus. But
oh man, he was awesome. I watched him compete. He was in the strongman games in the 80s and 90s. I think he was with some of the originals.
Yeah. About a year ago, I interviewed him. Excellent. He was
cool.
Martin Litch's coach, who won it 2 years ago. Anyway, brilliant guy, really good interview. So,
that's cool. That's so cool.
So we can all aspire to be as strong as him when we're 70. Rob, it's been brilliant having you on. Please take a moment now just to let everyone know where they can find out about a bit more about you, the services you offer, and put the name out there a little bit, please.
Our website's trainingtheolderadult.com, so people are more than welcome to hop on there. We have an online training course. All of our education is provided online, but we actually have a course that teaches you how to train older people online. I have a new class coming out that's Mastering the Bells. It's for fat bells and kettlebells. We have 120 exercises we're teaching utilizing those. We have our method of programming. That's a 8-week, 7-week course, 30 hours that we go into there of all of our programming, progressions of all of our exercises, stuff all year long we have available there. YouTube, search my name there. Facebook and Instagram, my name as well. I've got 80 something videos, maybe 100 videos on YouTube. People are free to check that, including the Timmerman one that's on there for you. So yeah, I've got info and stuff out there all over the place, and slowly getting more opportunities to go out and present in person. We'll be speaking at NSCA National this year and a couple others. So yeah, we're getting
to go and see some people in real life. That'll be exciting.
We're going to Florida in July, so it'll be 100 and something and 90% humidity, but I'm excited to go and be able to see my NSCA family and people we haven't seen in 2 years. So it'll be nice.
Yeah, I bet. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat today. It's been awesome. Loads of value for people, I think.
I really appreciate you having me. I would love to come back. This was really fun. Keep that beard. Get your products.
Get some products in there.
Yep, where to get it. And I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
We'll do the sequel. It'll be beard grooming. Everyone tune in for that.
I've got notes and everything. I can definitely help with that.
Looking forward to it. All right, man. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yes, sir. You too.